The forest does not care that she is exhausted. It never has. Celine runs with Lyra pressed against her chest, one hand cupped around the back of her daughter's head, the other arm locked beneath her small weight like a promise she has been keeping for 5 years. Behind her, ash-born wolves. She cannot see them, but she can hear them. The soft, deliberate pad of paws that are not hurrying because they do not need to. They know where she is going. They want to see if she is brave enough or broken enough to actually do it. She is both. Ahead, the Iron Blood border, the kingdom that once held her like a secret, the king she left in the dark without a word, without a note, without even the dignity of a goodbye. The kingdom that would be entirely justified in putting an arrow through her the moment she crossed the tree line. The darkness shifts. A warm room cuts through the memory. His hands, the specific weight of them. His voice low against her hair. "Don't disappear on me." She hadn't stayed. The border torches appear between the trees. Celine does not slow down. She bursts through the tree line at full speed and stops only when 4 Iron Blood guards raise their weapons simultaneously, and the cold click of steel fills the midnight air like a held breath. She raises her chin. She says his name the way you say the only word left in a burning building. Lyra stirs against her chest, opens her eyes, slow and sleepy and devastating. The nearest guard makes a sound like he has forgotten how breathing works. The little girl has the Alpha King's eyes. Exactly, completely, the same dark gold, the same particular intensity, the same quality of looking at something and seeing straight through it to the truth underneath. The guards do not move, do not speak. They just stare at the child who is staring back at them with a king's gaze in a 5-year-old's face. Celine pulls Lyra closer and waits. Zion is on his second whiskey when the radio crackles. He does not startle. Kings do not startle. He sets the glass down with the careful deliberateness of a man who has spent years training every instinct towards stillness, and picks up the receiver. The guard's voice is strange, tight in a way that perimeter alerts do not usually produce. He had. The name landed in his chest like a blade finding an old scar. Not new pain, but the specific deep ache of something that never fully closed. He sets the receiver down. He finishes the whiskey. He stands at his window for 7 minutes exactly, watching the torchlight on the eastern wall, reassembling his face into something a king is permitted to wear in public. People think Zion is cold. He is not cold. He is careful. There is a difference, though he has never explained it to anyone, because explaining would require admitting that the coldness began the morning he woke up and reached for someone who wasn't there. The warmth of her side of the bed, the servant's passage door hanging slightly open. Nothing else. No note, no reason. Just the particular silence of a person who has been erased. He had been a different man before that morning. Slightly. Enough to matter. His beta appears in the doorway. One look at Zion's face, and he goes carefully, professionally, blank. Zion walks, not runs. The corridor feels longer than it ever has. He opens the door of the receiving hall, and the first thing he sees is her hair. Same dark fall of it, same way it escapes whatever she has done to keep it back. And then her gray eyes find his across the room. For one cracked second, the 5 years simply collapse. All that careful distance folds like paper. Then he sees the child on her hip. His jaw, his brow, the stubborn set of a small mouth he has never seen before and recognizes with every cell he has. The silence stretches 11 seconds. He counts them without meaning to. Celine's chin lifts, that familiar defiance, unchanged, unbowed. The little girl turns her head and looks at him with his own eyes and says in a voice like small bells, "You smell sad. Mama smells like that sometimes, when she thinks I'm asleep." The entire room goes absolutely still. And Zion, the alpha king of Ironblood, who has not been caught off guard by anything in 5 years, has absolutely no answer. The room they give her is beautiful and cold and nothing like his. Celine sits on the edge of the bed while Lyra sleeps in the center of it, small and perfect, and entirely unbothered by the fact that they are sleeping inside the kingdom that could end them both before breakfast. Celine listens to the guard shift outside the door, counts the seconds between footsteps. Old habit. She learned to count footsteps here, in these corridors, 6 months that feel like another woman's life. She had not planned to stay. That is the thing she needs someone to understand and never gets to say. She had arrived as a border law student with a temporary residential pass and a very careful plan to remain invisible. She had been invisible her entire life. She was good at it. Then he came around a corridor corner in civilian clothes. No crown, no guard, just a man in a dark jacket looking at something in his hand. And the bond had detonated through her sternum like a struck bell, and every careful plan she had ever made turned instantly to smoke. She had run. He had run. For 11 days, they performed elaborate indifference in every shared space, which would have been more convincing if his jaw didn't tighten every time she walked into a room. On the 12th night, she knocked on his private door at midnight with a legal question she absolutely did not need answered. He looked at her for a long moment, reading her, reading the question, reading the real reason she was standing in his doorway at midnight with her heart trying to exit her body, and stepped aside. She learned which passages the cameras missed. He left the side entrance unlocked on nights she said she might come, which became most nights, which became something neither of them named because naming it made it real, and real things could be taken. They talked until the sky changed color, about pack law and old wars and his father's difficult hands, about what it means to lead people who need you to be made of stone when you are not made of stone. She described her mother only in careful fragments, always stopping just before the part that would unravel everything. He traced the scar on her collarbone every time, never once asked. She loved him most for that. 3 months in, deep in the particular dark of 4 a.m, he pulled her close and set it to the back of her head, voice barely above breath, like a confession meant only for the dark to hear. She had gone perfectly still, controlled every muscle, let her breathing stay slow and even while her entire world quietly cracked open. She had lain awake until he drifted off. Then she had turned her face into his pillow and understood, with the specific clarity of someone watching a door close, that she was going to lose this, because she was Mordecai Dracos's daughter, and love was not something Mordecai Dracos allowed to stand in the way of strategy. What she does not know, cannot know, is that on the other side of the wall at the end of this corridor, Zion is standing at his window holding a report his investigator filed an hour ago, her name at the top, her bloodline beneath it, and below that, a date, a meeting request filed in court records 5 years ago, scheduled for the morning she disappeared. She had been going to tell him. His hand tightens on the paper until it crumples. She had been going to tell him everything. The council chamber smells like old wood and older grudges. Celine stands at the center of it with her hands loose at her sides, and her face arranged into the particular calm of someone who learned very young that showing fear was an invitation. 12 council members, 12 pairs of eyes that have already decided. She counts them the way she counts footsteps, not from anxiety, but from the habit of knowing exactly where the exits are. Elder Cassian rises before anyone else can draw breath. He is smooth about it, practiced. The petition is already prepared. She notices that first, the way the parchment is too neat, the ink too dry. He had written it before she arrived. Someone told him she was coming before the border guards radioed in. Detainment pending investigation. Daughter of Mordecai Dracos, enemy of the Ironblood Kingdom. Presence constitutes an act of war. 2 junior members second it before the echo dies. Cassian has been on this council for 30 years. He is not cruel in the way small men are cruel, petty and personal. He is cruel the way institutions are cruel, procedurally, without heat, with the conviction that he is protecting something larger than himself. He believes it. That is what makes him dangerous. He looks at Lyra and sees a threat. He looks at Celine and sees a weapon her father sent through the front door. The fact that he is wrong has never stopped a man like Cassian before. Zion's voice, when it comes, is measured and cold as Riverstone. He overrules the petition. One sentence, no elaboration. He tells her so privately an hour later, in a corridor so narrow they have to stand closer than either of them intends. "Tell me why you came back." Not a question. The words land like a hand pressed against an old wound, steady, deliberate, already knowing the answer and needing to hear it spoken aloud. She meets his eyes. "She needed to know her father, and my father found us. Those were the only two reasons I had left." The silence that follows is the loudest thing she has ever heard, louder than the forest last night, louder than the bond breaking 5 years ago. Zion does not move. A muscle works in his jaw once, the only fracture in the composure, and then he turns and walks away. 400 miles away, in a war room that smells like iron and pine, Mordecai Dracos reads a report by candlelight. He is not what stories make him. He is a man in his 60s with a soldier's posture and hands that have signed more death warrants than letters. He is also, though he would not name it this way, a man who replaced love with strategy so long ago that he no longer remembers which one he started with. His daughter was not a person to him for most of her life. She was a variable, a liability, a loose thread in a war he had been winning for 20 years. He reads the part about Lyra's eyes, the markings on her arms, the power that threw 3 adult wolves off their feet. Something crosses his face that his generals have never seen there before, gone in less than a second. He folds the report, looks at the man who delivered it. "Watch the child. Tell no one what you saw." He nods once, and in the candlelight, the father's eyes go blank again. Lyra escapes the suite 4 times in 3 days. The guards assigned to her are good men, experienced, professional, utterly unprepared for a 5-year-old who treats locked doors as suggestions. The kitchens twice, the stable once, where the head groom finds her feeding an apple to the Alpha King's personal horse, with the calm authority of someone who has always belonged there. The 4th time, nobody finds her for 2 hours. She is sitting cross-legged outside Zion's private study door when he comes around the corner. He stops. She looks up at him with his own eyes and says with complete composure, "I've been waiting. You take a long time." Zion does not move. He should call for her guard. He should return her to Celine and add this to the list of complications he does not have time for. He has a tribunal to manage and a border report due at dawn. He crouches down to her level instead. She waits, unbothered, patient in the way children are patient when they have already decided how a conversation will go. "What are you waiting for?" he asks. Lyra considers this with genuine seriousness, tilts her head exactly the way he tilts his. "I wanted to see if you were scary. Mama says you're not, but she gets a funny face when she says it." "What kind of funny face?" "The kind she gets when something is true and sad at the same time." The corridor is very quiet. Zion looks at this small person, his jaw, his brow, Celine's mouth, Celine's fearlessness, and feels something move in his chest that 5 years of careful construction was supposed to have made impossible. He is not a man who laughs easily. He has not laughed at anything he does not track this kind of thing. He finds, to his complete surprise, that he wants to. He stands, opens the study door, steps aside. She walks past him into his study like she has been waiting to be invited in for years, which, in a way, she has been. She immediately finds the map on the wall and presses her small finger to the borderline between the 2 territories. Why is it red? That's where the fighting was. Is that where Mama ran? He does not answer right away. "Yes," he says. "That's where she ran." Lyra is quiet for a moment. Then, without turning, "She ran to you, though, at the end. That's different from just running away." Zion sits down at his desk. He does not correct her. His beta finds him still there 3 hours later, not working, just sitting, staring at the map where Lyra had traced the border with one small finger. "The council is asking about the girl's status," his beta says carefully. Zion does not look up. Her status is mine to determine, not theirs. And what is her status? He is quiet for a long moment. Then, her status is under my protection, formally. File it tonight. Before Celine has any legal standing, before Lyra has any official title, before Zion has said the word, the real word, the one he is not ready to say yet, he does the thing that matters. He puts his name in front of her. Somewhere in the East Wing, a 5-year-old girl sleeps with Ironblood silver already threading through her dreams. And her grandfather is running out of patience. The dossier arrives at dawn in a plain gray folder that has no business being as destructive as it is. Zion reads it at his desk with his second untouched coffee going cold beside him. Every page is a different kind of damage. Her mother's name, the safe house in neutral territory where Celine had been sending money in small, untraceable amounts since she was 19, not for her own escape route, for her mother's. The surveillance log from the night Mordecai's man entered the residential quarter of Ironblood's court. The timestamp, 3 hours after Celine had told Zion, laughing against his shoulder in the dark, that she thought she might stay past the semester. The 12-hour ultimatum is documented in Mordecai's own hand. Return to Ashbourne, or your mother is returned to me. Clinical and merciless in the way only a father who has replaced love with strategy can be. And then the last page. A court administrative record, a meeting request filed in Celine's name, scheduled for 7 in the morning she was already gone. The subject line reads, Personal disclosure, urgent, requesting private audience with the Alpha King. She was going to tell him. She had already decided. The night she left his bed for the last time, she had already written the request. She had weighed it all, his safety, his crown, the war that might follow, and she had decided that he deserved to know. Mordecai had found her first, her mother's life in one hand, the truth in the other. 12 hours to choose. Zion reads the report twice, sets it down. Sits with the particular devastation of a man whose entire architecture of survival has just been identified as fiction. For 5 years, he had built his coldness on a story. She used you, she lied, she left. You were a fool to have trusted her. That story had held him together. It had kept him upright. It was false. It had always been false. He finds Celine in the East Courtyard with Lyra, who is attempting to explain pack border law to a garden sparrow with complete seriousness. Celine sees his face and straightens. Lyra, reading the room with unnerving accuracy, takes her sparrow elsewhere without being asked. Zion holds up the folder. Celine looks at it, looks at him. Her chin does the thing it does, lifts, almost imperceptibly. She does not apologize. She is done apologizing for surviving. I was going to tell you. I know that changes nothing, but I need you to know it's true. He nods once, the nod of a man absorbing a structural collapse in real time. He does not speak to her for 2 days. She counts them. Old habit. On the 3rd day, she wakes at midnight for footsteps in the corridor. She knows the rhythm of them before her mind fully surfaces from sleep. She is at the door before he raises his hand to knock. They look at each other in the thin light of the corridor. He does not explain. She does not ask. She steps aside. He comes in. What nobody knows is that in a war room 400 miles away, Mordecai Dracos has just received a new report, his granddaughter's power level, documented, witnessed by 12 members of Ironblood's court. He reads it once, does not read it twice. He closes the folder. Move the eastern flank north, he says. We are done waiting. It begins with a hand on Celine. Not a gentle one. Elder Cassian's man steps into the corridor adjacent to the main hall and grabs Celine's arm above the elbow with the grip of a man making a point. He has papers. a summons. A second tribunal, freshly convened, with new charges. Celine does not make a sound. She has survived worse handling than this. Then, the air in the corridor changes. Lyra had been walking 2 steps behind her. The shock wave does not build. It simply arrives. A single concussive pulse that has no sound and all sound simultaneously, moving outward from a 5-year-old's instinctive fury like a stone dropped into still water. The man's grip tears away. He hits the corridor wall. 3 council members in the adjacent doorway stagger. Lyra stands with her small fists at her sides and the markings alive on her arms, crimson and silver blooming upward from her wrists in patterns that intertwine so completely they look designed, ancient, intentional. The pack elder who has served Ironblood for 40 years enters from the main hall. He takes one look at Lyra's arms and his face goes the color of old paper. The prophecy, he says, very quietly. She is the prophecy. Cassian moves through the crowd with the unhurried pace of a man who prepared for this moment. He reaches for Lyra. Zion crosses the hall in 11 steps. He does not run. He does not raise his voice. He simply arrives between Cassian's outstretched hand and his daughter with the specific finality of a door slamming shut. "Touch her again," Zion says, very quietly, "and I will remove your hand before the arm." The word daughter detonates in the room. Celine hears it from across the hall, and her hand finds the wall because her legs have made a unilateral decision about their structural reliability. Cassian withdraws his hand, smiles the smile of a man changing strategies rather than conceding. The kingdom will not accept an Ashborn child on the Ironblood throne. The kingdom, Zion says, will follow their king. The intelligence report reaches Zion's head of security at midnight. 8 months of documented communication. Every piece of information Cassian fed across the border, logged, time-stamped, devastating. Lyra's arrival, her power assessments, her location, the tribunal schedule, the security rotation outside Celine's room. All of it to Mordecai Dracos. Cassian was not trying to protect Ironblood from Celine. He was feeding Mordecai everything he needed to take Lyra and end the bloodline question permanently. Cassian is removed before dawn. No tribunal, no hearing. The door to his quarters simply opens at 3 in the morning and does not close with him inside it. Zion stands at his war room window as the first gray light touches the border tree line. His beta clears his throat carefully. "The prophecy the elder mentioned." "I know," Zion says. "His chosen mate will either save his kingdom or destroy it." "I know." His beta's pause lasts 1 second too long. "She already saved it," Zion says quietly. "She came back. That's the answer. It was always the answer." The maps have been wrong for an hour, and they both know it. Mordecai's forces have stopped moving in predictable lines. The border reports coming in every 30 minutes show lateral shifts, flanking patterns, the particular reorganization of an army that is no longer marching towards something. It is surrounding it. Zion marks the positions in silence. Celine watches his hand move across the map and does not say what they are both thinking, which is that 48 hours was optimistic. They have maybe 12. Somewhere around the 3rd hour, the strategies simply run out. The candles have burned to half. The radio sits quiet between reports, and they are just 2 people in a small room with 5 years of unsaid things, and not enough darkness left to keep hiding in. Zion sets down the pen. "I read the file," he says. "I know. You had 12 hours, and your mother." "Yes." "I would have helped you." His voice does not rise. It goes quieter, which is worse. "If you had come to me, I would have gotten her out. You didn't have to choose alone." She looks at her hands. The scar on her collarbone pulls tight, the way it does in cold rooms. I didn't know that. I didn't know if I could trust you with something that big. I knew you loved me. I didn't know if you loved me enough to risk a war. And now? She finally meets his eyes. Now I know what you did when Lyra walked into your study. I know you filed protection before I asked you to. I know you stepped between your counsel and your daughter without a second of hesitation. A breath. I know now. He crosses the room. He does not touch her yet. He stops close enough that she can hear him breathing, that specific rhythm she memorized in the dark 5 years ago, so she could carry it with her when she had nothing else. I've been in love with you since the 12th night, he says. You already knew that. I said it when you thought I was asleep. I said it hoping you were awake. The kiss is not gentle. It was never going to be gentle, not after 5 years, not after everything. It is accumulated gravity, the specific weight of two people who have been falling toward each other across half a decade, finally hitting ground. His hands find her face the way they always did, like she is something he is not willing to lose again, and she grabs the front of his shirt with both fists and holds on. They do not sleep. The radio goes quiet between its 30-minute intervals, and in those silences there is only the candle and his voice low against her skin, and 5 years of cold, empty nights paying their debt all at once. When dawn comes gray through the study window, she is still there. He's watching her the way he watched her in the beginning. Then the radio shatters everything. Zion is across the room before she sits up. The eastern flank. They're not waiting for dawn. The silence that follows is the kind that changes everything that comes after it. Zion's eyes find hers across the room. And Celine, who has spent 5 years running from her father, feels the specific cold of a trap closing, not around her body, but the one thing she cannot sacrifice. From the east wing, faint and distant and entirely too calm, a child's voice floats down the corridor. Lyra is awake, and she is singing in the ancient wolf tongue that no living pack has spoken in 3 centuries. The border looks different at dusk. Celine has crossed it twice, once in desperation, once in love, both times in the dark. Standing at its edge in the last red light of a dying afternoon with 300 ashborn wolves materializing from the tree line, like a held breath finally released, she understands that this time there is no running, there is only standing. So she stands. Zion shifts beside her, not gradually the way lesser wolves do, but all at once. A single movement like a curtain dropping, and the great black wolf of Ironblood legend is simply there, larger than the stories, darker, radiating the specific authority of something ancient and entirely done with patience. Mordecai Drakos walks out the tree line in human form with his army at his back. He stops when he sees Celine. He looks for the frightened girl he cornered in a corridor 5 years ago. She is not there. In her place is a woman who has run from him across neutral territories and a kingdom's worth of fear, and who is not running now. He opens his mouth. Lyra steps out from behind Celine. Nobody told her to. Nobody could have stopped her. She walks into the space between 2 armies with the unhurried calm of a child who has never learned the fear that centuries of war manufactured in everyone around her. Her small feet find a ground between them, and she stops and stands. The markings come alive. Ashbourne crimson first, blooming up her arms like something recognizing itself, and the sound that moves through Mordecai's wolves is not a sound at all. It is a frequency felt in the sternum before it reaches the ears. 300 Ashbourne wolves go rigid. Then the Ironblood silver rises through the crimson, intertwining, and the ground beneath Lyra's feet hums a single sustained note. Both at once, both simultaneously, 2 kingdoms written in light on a child's skin. This is what the prophecy always meant. Not destruction, not salvation through war. a child who carries both kingdoms in her blood and refuses to choose between them, a child who walks into the space between enemies and makes it smaller just by standing there. Mordecai Drakos stands very still. He looks at his granddaughter, this small, impossible person standing between everything he built and everything it cost. And Celine watches her father's face do the thing she has waited her entire life to see it do. It cracks. Not dramatically, just a fault line, deep and quiet, running through 60 years of iron certainty. He had wanted a weapon. He had spent 30 years engineering a war that would make him the answer to a question no one else had thought to ask. He had given up a daughter for it. He had given up everything soft in himself for it. And here, in the last red light of a day that was supposed to end in blood, the goddess had sent him an answer he did not plan and cannot refuse. The first wolf kneels on Mordecai's left, then the one beside him, then the entire right flank moving like water finding level. 300 Ashborn wolves who have followed this man through 20 years of war kneel to a 5-year-old girl with 2 kingdoms written on her skin. Mordecai stands alone. Then, with the particular grief of a man watching the war he built his life on turn to ash, he kneels too. Zion shifts back. He crosses the space between them without hurrying, without performance. He takes Celine's face in both hands. He looks at her the way he always looked at her, except this time it is in front of everyone, and he intends for it to be a secret ever again. He kisses her once, brief and formal, and completely devastating. Then he turns. His voice carries to the tree line and beyond it. The Ashborn pack is no longer an enemy of Ironblood. They are a protectorate, under my mate's name and my daughter's blood. If anyone wishes to contest this, they can test me. Nobody tests it. Lyra is 10 and has already mediated her first formal pack dispute, which she won by pointing out that both parties were technically wrong, and here was the relevant statute, thank you. She had prepared notes. The elder who witnessed it sent Zion a written message afterward that said only, "We are in good hands." Zion kept it. Celine found it in his desk drawer, pressed between 2 maps, and loved him so much it was almost unreasonable. Mordecai visits twice a year. He and Zion occupy the same rooms with the careful precision of 2 men who love the same woman and the same child and have made a private agreement, never spoken aloud, to behave. Celine sits between them at dinner and finds the whole arrangement so quietly hilarious that she sometimes has to hide her face in her wine glass. Mordecai once caught her laughing and looked, for just a moment, like a father who had gotten something right by accident. He has never been able to refuse Lyra anything. He finds this both gratifying and profoundly humbling, and tells no one. Zion still leaves the side door unlocked on certain nights, not because secrecy is required anymore, because some habits that began as stolen joy do not need to be retired just because the stealing is over. Some warmths belong to 2 people only. Celine still memorizes the sound of his breathing. She never stopped. She just stopped needing it to be something she carried alone into the dark. She carries it home.